People from cold climates, what is it about winter that people from warm climates simply don't understand? I am assuming you are asking for an upside to colder climates as opposed to a downside, which I'm sure most people already know. The only reason I will probably always choose the cold climate is because I could never live somewhere where the seasons don't change. Or, at least in a noticeable manner. If I spent Christmas without seeing the ground covered in snow, at least once, a part of me would die inside. If I didn't see the leaves change in the fall or the thawing of spring, I would not be a happy camper. Literally, that is the only reason, but it is a big one. At the right temperature, usually ca. 5°C, it's nice and dry outside. Yes, there is usually snow, and it's chilly, but not so cold you have to wear several layers not to freeze your bum off, and provided there hasn't been any rain or plus degrees in the days before there isn't any ice or slippery spots. It's just, in a lot of countries with warmer winters not hot like, Greece can have 8 degrees in January. There is a cold dampness and rain instead of snow, that seeps into everything, and Nemo feels colder than 5°C. In short, proper, cold winter dry. Black ice on the roads. With snow and normal ice, you at least know it's there and can drive accordingly. Black ice will make your heart jump out of your ass and make you too traumatized to walk outside or drive for a week. I'd to add that spring is amazing after a cold, snowy winter. Everything changes. When you breathe, the air is no longer sharp and metallic, but a little bit softer and more earthy. I get butterflies in my stomach just from seeing the first sprouts of leaves. People seem happier and hornier for a few weeks. They're all very rare. That you have dry cold and wet cold, just like with heat. The humidity gets through your clothes and you get cold much fast. I can barely stand 30 on the East Coast, but when I live in the prairies I could easily manage 30, and I could go out in 40 even. I wouldn't even think of going out at 40 on the East Coast. And that driving in the winter is not the same. I live somewhere where winter tires are required, and tourists that come here to have the winter wonderland feel and rent a car have a good chance of ending up in a ditch. The fun of variation in seasons. The cold can actually be pretty enjoyable in its own way, and when you do start to get sick of it, you can start looking forward to the heat, and the reverse when it's hot. Makes you really appreciate and savor each time of the year. I live in the high desert with 10-0-30-0 winters and 95-0-1050 summers, and love imagining the opposite season when we're in the peak of the current one. The tropics always sound nice in January, but living in a single year-round climate would feel like missing out. How long it is where I come from, you usually get some dustings in October. November is grey, miserable shit. December is all cold and snow, but okay because it's Christmas. January is cold and frozen. So is February. March might have a few days of warmth, but then more snow and cold. April is like another November, cold, drizzly and shit, and usually more snow. So you basically have May, September, 5 months that are awesome and the rest suck. Big reason that working overseas in a tropical country suits me quite well. How little there is to do that doesn't cost a lot of money. You're either going to sit at home or leave the house and immediately be spending money. There is no going to a park for the afternoon. There's no just going for a comfortable walk around for a couple hours. There's no just getting together with friends outside to do anything. There's no cheap local sports to blow an afternoon. There's no free music going on in any outdoor venues. There's no little local markets. There's nothing but cold and dark. That the difference between us being horrible and tolerable is having proper equipment. I'm from the lower Midwest. No, it's not the coldest place. But it gets cold. And it always sucked. I decided to buy some proper cold weather stuff. It makes it manageable. Some nice quality winter boots. Coveralls. Stuff like that. You may only need them a couple weeks out of the year, but it's worth it. And if you buy halfway decent stuff, it will last for several years. How it gets so cold that your face hurts and there isn't much you can do short of wearing a ski mask. How if your coat is too insulated you will get sweaty, and how cold it makes you when you stop moving. How blindingly bright snow can be. People also get caught off guard when it is not quite freezing but humid and wet. Think Pacific Northwest, British Isles, Netherlands, etc. Soaking wet and cold can be just as bone-chilling as an Arctic winter. There's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothes. Yes, it gets cold, most of the time you can add a layer and still go outside. There's only so many clothes you can take off when it's too hot. Beard frost, your nostrils briefly freezing together, your eyelashes sticking to each other. A 40th degree rainy day feels much colder than a sunny 20th degree. Heating your house dries out the air. Lots of dry skin during the winter, at least where I'm from. how much washer fluid you go through during dump thaw cycles. Living in a region that experiences Chinooks constantly, everyone's windshield cracks due to road sanding. They use pebble salt mixture here. Rust on vehicles is inevitable. We all mostly have engine block heaters installed from the dealer. If you don't have a garage, a remote starter is your savior, especially in anything 15°C5F or colder. The way the moon can be bright enough to cause the trees to cast shadows on the snow. No flashlights required outdoors after dark. How good it feels to take deep breaths of cold, fresh air deep into your lungs. It's so cleansing. The fact that when the temps drop to 20°C the trees pop like gunshots. That a snowstorm can create a quiet like no other. So peaceful. The way it feels when your nose hairs freeze. So cute. Americans posting about 10°F. There is a temperature at which some grades of motor oil border on becoming solid. As a teenager, I pumped gas in temps deep in the 40°C range. It hit 56 with the wind chill. Oil left outside couldn't be sold in those temps because you couldn't pour it. And don't even think of driving until you let your car warm up for 5-10 minutes. Oil that thick isn't lubricating anything. When I moved to California after living in Ohio, I ended up getting a girlfriend who was born and raised in California. One day she was helping me clean my car and found my combination snow brush and ice scraper, and she had no idea what it was. I explained that on snowy days we have to brush snow off of our cars and chip ice off windshields before driving. She had never heard of such horror. After growing up in New England, and living in Alaska for a number of years, as well as Colorado, I can safely say no. No more snow. I never got used to plugging in my car not an EV. There was a battery blanket, oil pan heater, and radiator heater. And occasionally I found that someone had unplugged my car, which could easily lead to thousands of dollars in repairs. How when it gets cold it noticeably changes what the world sounds like. From a blanket of snow muffling everything to the cold making things stiffer, harder. For example, the soles of your shoes on pavement will sound different in the winter than summer, and that the cold air lets you hear more from farther away. That sometimes it can feel so good to be cold. Either right now, when it's 5 and you go for a walk, or 35 and you've skied so much that you're just in snow pants and a sweater. When your core body is hot, but the outside layer is chilled. So glorious. Also, sitting in a hot tub when you are boiling live but your hair is frozen solid. The feeling is perfection. There are different kinds of cold. Dry cold, damp cold, and they're very different. I live on the east coast of Canada. We get a damp cold due to the high moisture content in the air, and it absolutely sucks. It literally feels like nothing makes a difference in keeping you warm. Out in Alberta though, it's 40°C, but it's a very different kind of cold. How much darkness there can be. I live in Scotland, and though it's not the coldest of countries, the winter darkness here is brutal. Depending on the time of year we can end up only having around 7 hours of daylight, and the Scottish government actually recommends taking vitamin D supplements due to the lack of sunlight. When I visited Edmonton in December I was amazed at how much stuff they could keep running. That much snow and ice would shut my 45 North City down for weeks. Also, it's usually so cold that most people don't bother with studs or ice-specific tires. Since there is no friction melting, it's like driving on gravel. The wind is relentless. The amount of blowing snow that will get through a tiny crack. Wind chill factor is real. Boogers freeze in your nose. Eyelashes freeze together, so don't blink. Light layers of clothes that overlap seams is better than one heavy layer. Feet and fingers get way cold way fast. When the ground is covered in snow and there's a really bright full moon at night, sometimes it's like daylight. You can see right out into your yard at midnight. I can see into my woods and into the neighborhood behind. It's strange. I've put snow boots on and gone for a walk. It's pretty cool. That heavy snowfall can actually insult and keep warm. Typically up north where I come from, the winters carried lots of heavy snow. However, in the south where I am now it is much drier with higher winds. This typically makes southern winters feel much colder than northern ones. When it gets really, really cold, like single digits Fahrenheit, that shit follows you and is a constant companion. Doesn't matter how warm it is in the house, your feet will always be cold, your hands will always be cold. Doesn't go away until it gets close to freezing again. How hard it is on the body both physically and mentally. I lived in a warmer climate for about 10 years before moving back to my hometown, which has frigid winters for family reasons. Both my wife and I have noticed the effect the winter months have on our health. I had a friend from the warmer climate ask me about temperatures below 0°C Fahrenheit. She assumed once you hit 0 it's just the same level of cold. Nope. Go to 20 or 30 below and it is a whole new realm of cold where it sometimes makes you cough when you're breathing. The difference between dry cold and wet cold. When we used to have winter in New Jersey, you really feel the cold because you have the humidity coming in from the ocean. Go to Colorado, and it's less intense despite being far colder because there's no moisture. There are a ton of little maintenance things, like having to leave your water running at a trickle to keep your pipes from freezing. Same thing with heat, you can't just turn it off or it's too low if you leave, or else pipes and whatnot freeze and burst. Bad news: the New England winter versus the South winter. Same temperatures but different feelings. My cousin, being from Florida, loves winter season. I point out she can visit one day but she refuses. She says she loves Florida coldness. Such a drama. Person shrugging. The snow that the town plows push back into your driveway just after you finish cleaning it up is very heavy compared to all the snow you were pushing around previously. They always show up after you finish. It's a plow driver rule. We don't have the little reflectors embedded into the road because of snow plows. So on days when it is snowy or even just rainy, you can't see the lines that divide the lanes on the highway and it can be pretty sketchy. That the cold isn't bad at all. I really enjoy it. There's something comfy about going to work at 6 a.m. and feel the cold breeze hit your cheeks. Might be a shock at first, but you'll enjoy it once you get used to it. Seriously. Wind, very cold wind. No matter how well dressed you are, it will find some crack to get under it and freeze your ass. Less seriously, my vote goes for hot fart, a short-lived blessing.